Alright, yeah, okay, so include default modes, include default options. I think this is true and true. Options for next match, default modes, random option set limit. Alright, so this will be true and true. Alright, that's looking better. Get default mode count. Options for match. Get options for next match. What's this bitching about? Semicolons? Alright. Alright, so that should set those basic things. Then what we have to do is we have to set up the playlist option sets and game mode config. So I need to snag all of these things. So playlist option sets is going to be this, like, get all option sets. And then, so that'll be all the option sets, and then we need the game mode configs out of there. So get all game modes. So that should grab everything out of there and shove it into that array. Okay, so what we have to do here is we need to do if playlist.include default options, include default modes. Alright, go ahead and lurk. What we're going to do first is we're going to do I guess we want to grab the default playlist on this. So we'll have our default playlist available as well. So, and we'll also add that on here. So if this is true, then default playlist dot, so the playlist dot option sets equals the default playlist to start with. And this will be our game mode configs. Was it game modes configs? Yeah, that's a problem. It should be game mode configs. Otherwise, what we have to do is go through our config here and do that. So And this is a game mode option set inside of here. Hello, Hanklet69. Sushi breakfast? Sushi for breakfast? What? That seems so wasteful. Yeah, I'm working on... It's a game in Unreal 4, and a lot of it's in C++, so that's what I'm working on. Homemade sushi? Well, that's not bad. Alright, so we'll add our option sets and this is our game mode dev. So it's basically like we have to make a game mode configuration and then actually fill out everything for it. Okay, so we have these game mode defs, which have the name and option set array, and always in rotation. So I basically have to go through these option sets and pull them out by name, and then we can add them to this thing. Okay, so basically it's going to be for this game mode option set. And it's going to be inside of playlist.optionSets. We have to do even more for loops. Kind of nasty, because we're using data structures that aren't really object-oriented for doing this. What am I doing? Okay, so we're going to go through and we're going to grab everything we can off of these things because these option sets are like that. And we're going to add those to the game mode. If we don't find it, then we'll at least warn. Okay, so that'll add the option set to the mode, and that'll add all the option sets there. That's good. We need to set the mode dot, but it's always in rotation. Okay, so I think that'll do it. So that'll add our modes, and we need to do playlist dot. I guess game mode configs. We'll add the mode in there. Alright, and I need to regenerate this code. Yeah, interesting that Hanklet's talking about C++ in university, because I think nowadays pretty much all the colleges teach you Java and things like that, and you don't actually get into C++ except for maybe some specialized things. Like my college was all C++, and then when I got into the workforce it was all Java and shit like that. So I had like the opposite experience. I forgot to save my gen file. Oh well. I'll just have to wait. Yeah, it's one of the things I miss about Seattle and San Francisco and San Diego. Moving back to Spokane, there's pretty much no sushi. Unless, you know, you want to go pay a lot at some fancy restaurant. I mean, there is some stuff, like you can go get, you know, store sushi or whatever. But, like over in Seattle, there's a bunch of just small places you could go to that had, you know, whatever you wanted and not too expensive and to go and all that. Totally spoiled over there with excellent places. That's why you make it yourself. Yeah, but it takes so much work, and the thing that takes all the work is the damn rice, because if the rice isn't good, it doesn't matter what you put on there. Yeah, very expensive or very bad. I think that was one of the South Park jokes, was like, eat some of the finest seafood from one of Colorado's many oceans. Like, wait a minute, it's a landlocked state. It's in the middle of the damn country. It's 500 miles from the fucking coast. Game modes configs is not a member of... Yes, that is true. Always in rotation is not a member of game mode config. Where's game mode config? Game mode configuration level, config bars, option sets. well then let's just add it. Keep the rolls for a few days in the fridge. Yeah, that's what you gotta do. And I still gotta figure out what I'm going to for during GDC. Like, it's closer than you think. Like, GDC is the end of next month, but it's already February, right? Because we've got everything booked, but I need to actually, because it's a conference and you don't really have much time between talks or whatever. And I also need to go over that stuff with Adam, because it's kind of one of those, like, if you go to a conference and you go with somebody else and they're just going to all their own shit and you're kind of just stuck there like, well, I've never been to this, because Adam's never been to GDC. Be like, all right, cool, Adam, but I'll see you later. It's like, god damn it. So I'll probably want to talk to him, and we should probably all go to the same one so we have something to talk about. Because that's another thing. I know a bunch of people in San Francisco, so while we're at GDC, I'll probably run into just an unending number of people who I am familiar with. Because, when I went one year, I couldn't walk more than, 100 feet before running into somebody I knew. Like, even when I was walking out of an award, the IGF awards, and, it's a big hall, it's a big, 5,000 people or whatever the hell in a, conference area, or how many hell people they had. And it's all dark, like the lights are off, because it's a presentation. And just walking out of that, somebody stopped me. I'm like, God fucking damn it, I'm trying to leave. Okay, so we'll add all our available playlists, and then we'll set our playlist to this thing here. Playlist name is default, create active playlist. We need to create the default playlist before we do anything, because we use it in our configs. Okay, so we want to do is get playlist by name, which is going to be playlist. So if playlist, alright, let's just do starting playlist name. So if playlist, if not get playlist by name, then we need to get our, so m active playlist equals m default playlist with a warn, unable to find playlist by name using default instead. Alright, so active playlist is going to be starting playlist. Alright. Alright, so that'll get that, and we want this apply option sets to config vars. I think it's already set. Are there parallel talks? Yes, there are at any given time, like, 30 different things to go to. So it's a gigantic conference. I think all in all, there's something like 10 to 12,000 people that go to the conference. So I mean, it's a pretty big thing. So get game modes. Get next game modes. Okay, so instead of this, like, get levels in rotation. Yeah, get levels in rotation. We'll do. And those. Okay, so this is a static thing, so what we need to do is get all the things here. Alright, so get default mode count. Alright, so get options for next match. Needed options. Get options for next match. And then get required game modes. And I guess we should be passing in a playlist here. So we need to make some things here for, like, get required game modes, and we're going to pass in this whole thing. Okay, so do that. So we need get random game mode from a playlist. And these configs should all be set up properly. And then we need to get all option sets. Get random option set limits. Get random int range. And then all the modes will be finished and we'll be good to go. So I just need to implement these functions then. I like how I have 4 in there, jeez. Okay, so if we have a playlist, we're going to want to get the required game modes out of that. So basically, if we go through the playlist is going to have game mode configs. Okay, so for const fgame mode config duration conf in playlist dot game mode configs, if conf dot always in rotation, then modes.add conf. Alright. Get random game mode. Okay, so the random game mode is going to be just a random one that's not in the set. So I mean, we can just go through all of them and basically pick our thing. Why don't we just do that? Alright, so we'll just return those. And we want to grab all the option sets. So for all the option sets, it's going to be what? Playlist.option sets? It's just, is that it? Is that just done? Get required game modes. Get random game modes. Or get random game mode. Get all option sets. Random option set limit on and that'll return our modes that we actually have. Alright. I guess I need to take in a list of a T array. And these should all be static, since they're static. You've only been to one or two smaller conferences. Yeah, the only conference thing I've really been to is the Game Developers Conference. Like, there's other things, I can go to PAX or whatever, but I have really just kind of stayed away from those because every time people go to those, they'd come back just like catching some horrible disease. I don't know. That whole crowd of, at least at the Game Developers Conference, you have to pay like $1,000 to get a pass to actually get in and go to any of it. So the people who show up, at least know how to shower and know how to be presentable. Versus, I don't know, some of those game conferences, there's a bit of a question as to if these people got dropped off by their parents to visit. Okay, so we should be using our playlist configuration now. Let's just go see if that's actually true or not. So we should just call get next game modes with a T array of game modes after this, just to roll the dice once. Actually, we've already got a debug button for that, so why don't we just throw a breakpoint there and see what we get when we hit play. And when we're in the game, we can hit the debug button and see what we're getting. Uh-oh. Okay, so we ran out of RAM there for some reason. Like, I've got a little display and I saw the RAM thing go zoop up to like 100 billion. So there's something with static variables that can get kind of fucked up with all this. And I thought I had that set up. So I'm not sure why this is getting upset. Like loading server config from server config in that version. Like, I mean, are we in the game instance? Like, where are we here? Yeah, I don't know where the code is exploding. This is not being helpful. Why do we have a call to initialize here? This file is auto-generated. Okay, I think this is probably what's going on, is our autogen for game mode data needs to not call initialize. It's probably calling it over and over and over again. And okay, so it's game mode, game instance. Yeah, game mode data initialize. Okay, so it should do it. Yes, professional cons for biology and digital art. Yeah, I think those would be more clean cut. Going from a school that had programmers and then artists. They had the production animation track, and they also had the engineering track. The artists actually showered. That's very true. That was the thing of that college. Like, yeah, we didn't have a campus or anything. It was just half of an upstairs of a Nintendo warehouse. So just these big, long, things that were supposed to be office areas on the second floor, and the only real food available, since they didn't have a real cafeteria, was the 7-Eleven in the parking lot. So just the place always smelled like bad 7-Eleven hot dogs, which is not a good smell. And there was an extremely high dropout rate. Artists only shower when they are in the outside world. I guess so. But there's an extremely high dropout rate in college for programmers. Like, I think the incoming class was like 200 people, and the outgoing class was like 80. So pretty much all that was dropouts. But man, there were people the incoming freshmen classes were usually pretty stuffed. You had to make sure you got there early to get any sort of good seat. But there were always a couple people that always had their own little sphere of influence around them, that even if it was a completely crowded class, there would never be somebody sitting next to them because they just smelled so goddamn bad. Thankfully, I haven't had to deal with that in the real world with actual people at jobs. Yeah, it looks like that initialize is what was screwing us up. Alright, what is going on here? We're running out of RAM. Again. Too many for the market. Well, the thing with engineering is there's too few. We just don't have enough engineers. It's pretty nuts. Like they're always useful. Just in any project, need more engineers of various types and specialties. Okay, so the game mode data initialize function is just making this thing lose its mind. Why is that? What are we doing here that is so absurd that everything just dies horribly? So it's the game modes that we're having problems with. Why would it be all screwed up here? I mean, we're not using any static member variables anymore, so that shouldn't explode anything. So why in the fuck is this all unhappy with us? So we add this to our option sets. We have GM default, no contact. So game modes has got one thing in it, which is these config variables. Option sets is invalid? No, it's just empty. Alright, so we're adding GM no contact, and we're out of RAM. Are we inside of option sets.add? Yeah, I mean, look at all this stuff in option sets, which is all just trash. I mean, do we need to add a reset to these things? This is like game modes add GM no contact, and it's that the Yeah, I think we need to change our game mode data. Do we have a reset on these guys? So if we go to our shared objects, yeah, we do have a reset function that we can call on these things, so we should just go ahead and call it, is what I think. Right. I should probably put parentheses in here for these things. It's like it wasn't initialized. So why would the only thing I can think of is that the sets, there's just something wrong with the initialization for the memory for this stuff, and it's getting fucked up somehow. Like, but it doesn't make sense. It's a new U object that we just made that we're initializing, and I expect the T arrays and everything else to be set properly on there, not have just a bunch of fucking garbage. I don't know. Some of these things are just kind of screwy with initialization sometimes. It's kind of frustrating. It's like, we knew the memory right here. It's a new U object, and we called initialize on it. Is it that some of these aren't U properties or something like that, and as a result, it didn't like what we were doing? That's still all sorts of screwed up. Well, let's just regenerate it and see what we got again. I really don't understand why this is so fucking difficult. Like, we're adding a member variable to a T array. Like, it's just, that's it. There's nothing complicated going on here. Like, the memory is all allocated, the objects exist, and then we're trying to add them, and it explodes inside of the template stuff on allocating memory for what? A string that should be initialized already? Or where is it even blowing up? Like, we're not using anything fancy here. Like, these are just F structs, or U structs with being added to member variable things. That's it. What the fuck is this complaining about? I don't have closing brackets on these things. Means game modes.add. Game modes is just a T array of game mode configurations. And game mode configurations contain level info and game mode option set array. Config vars. They're not that complex. It's always crap like this. So game modes is empty. This is empty. I mean, our option set is null. Option set is empty, and then we add this thing, and the option set is invalid. I don't understand. I don't understand why this is a T array of game mode configurations. And this option sets T array is just trashed somehow. When returning a TRA, make sure to always pass it by reference. I don't know, something's